Good morning. Thank you, Anne. Good morning, everyone. I'm your chaplain for today. And actually, this week, I believe that we have something new. You can go into a chat room and click on chat. And put your name in and phone number, and I'll get back to you. We have prayer available at any time today and through the week. And any prayer that you have a concern or gratitude or celebration, or maybe you just want to pray with someone. So, whatever is on your mind, you will be able to do that. Let's see. Okay, trying to follow the slide here. So, let's take time this morning. If you have someone on your mind, you bring someone to mind that you have a concern, and let's put them in the prayer circle, and we will have a prayer. Here we are. Let us take a moment now to include them in the prayer of the transforming love, the power of love. You may speak their names silently or aloud. Let's do that now. James, Alex, Marcus, Todd, Morgan, Bill, Dixie, Zenaida, Conchi. And now let's bring these precious souls into prayer. With a deep breath and the relaxed breath, let's hold these sacred souls in our heart as we open up our heart space. In our mind's eye, we visualize each person, the divine spark within each person, filling their beings with love, healing, wholeness, knowing that God lives in us and we live in God. We are grateful to know this, and that God is ever present. We live in a wondrous world with many blessings every day, and we thank God for such a beautiful world we live in. And so it is. Thank you, God. Amen. And now, together, let's give our blessing to the world. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold God's love as you. Amen. And now let's prepare for meditation.
I come in. It's time of quiet contemplation. I invite you to think of your soul as a portal for the infinite power, wisdom, love, light of God. And you're breathing. As you breathe in physically, the atmosphere that you share with all beings. As you breathe out, participating in the cycle of life. You physically do that, feel that, and know that. Open your soul to breathe in and breathe out divine ideas, the infinite mind, spirit that is the source and reality of the universe. It's always with you, expressing in you, through you, and as you. So now in this time of contemplation, breathe in your soul, the portal of your soul, the divine ideas that spirit has for you right now. Simply be open and receptive. This infinite mind has infinite divine ideas. And at the same time, some very simple, vast ideas that contain and interact with all these ideas. We think of the divine idea of love. It's an appropriate idea on Mother's Day. So we open our souls and our hearts to love. Just breathe it in and breathe it out with your soul as a blessing to someone, to others. Again, the love, breathe it out through your consciousness to the world. Breathe in the light, the wisdom, intelligence, this infinite mind, for you are one with that infinite mind, wisdom, understanding, enlightenment. Again, that light, know, be receptive to knowing that what you need to know is already yours. Whether what you need is guidance or understanding or creative ideas. Just be open, take it in, reinforce it by seeing it or hearing it or affirming what you receive. Simply be still and receptive. We are one with the infinite. We are one with all power, all love, light, and life. We are one with the infinite. We are one with each other. The infinite flows in and through all of us, body, soul, heart, and mind. Our being is one with the ground of all being. We call God, call spirit. We may call Father, we may call Mother. But we recognize that at a level deeper than our ordinary human consciousness, we are connected to a divine source, the all good, the all knowing, the all present, the all power. In this awareness now, ask and you'll receive, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be opened. Take a few moments in the silence so that each one may commune with this ground of our being, the infinite source, God the good, Father, Mother, Spirit. Be still and know. So we are grateful for whatever it is we've received in these few moments of silence, whether a simple feeling of peace or a radiance of life, light, and love, or a specific idea or specific blessing for others. We are grateful for all that each one has received. Great mystic Meister Eckhart said, if you only say, the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that is sufficient. And so we simply close with that in our hearts, our minds. Thank you. So it is. Amen. I didn't put up the order of service. Is there something next between? Yes?
How about a song?
It's us.
Because we're almost ready for your service, but we could just feel a little bit better going in, a little more.
A little better.
So here we go.
More better?
Gonna
Okay.
bring the energy up a little. Here we are.
There, that's a nice little intro right there.
Thanks. The road to happiness can be a short or distant road. It can be rough. It can be sublime.
But if I want tomorrow to be better than right now, ooh, all I got to do is take one step at a time. Well, I'm gonna feel better than I did just a second ago. I'm gonna feel better than I did just a minute ago. I'm gonna feel better than I did just a minute ago. I'm gonna do it. That's what I know. Oh, 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 oh.
Well, I'm gonna take a step on the road to a beautiful world. I'm gonna take a step on the road to a beautiful world. Yeah, I'm gonna take one step and get on that road to a beautiful world. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it. Yes, that's what I know.
I'm gonna feel better than I did just a minute ago. I'm gonna feel better than I did just a minute ago. I'm gonna did just a minute ago. I'm gonna do it. That is what I know.
Well, I'm gonna spread some sunshine from here all over the world. I'm gonna spread some sunshine from here all over the world. Oh yeah, I'm gonna slather sunshine from here all over the world. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it. That's what I know. I know it.
To go, then I'm gonna go out, spread my wings, do a million things that make me wanna jump and shout.
Jump and shout. Jump and shout.
Jump and shout. I feel better already.
I'm gonna feel better. Jump and shout. I'm gonna feel better. Jump and shout.
Now.
I'm gonna feel better.
I'm gonna do it.
Jump and shout. I'm gonna feel better.
Better.
Jump and shout. Oh, I'm gonna feel better. Oh yeah.
Woo! I feel better. Take it, Jim. Take it away.
Okay.
That was fun.
I'm delighted to be here. I have to say, I can't remember the last time I so much enjoyed the musical aspect of the service. So I'm grateful. Are these your regulars, Richard? Or these?
I wouldn't call them regular, Jim.
Semi-regular.
Semi-regular.
Well, now that the garden's
grown with us, yes.
Absolutely delightful. You do a little bit of jazz, you throw in some rock, a bit of gospel. Fantastic. I love all of them. You guys
Thanks,
just
Jim.
did a great job. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation. I know you're a forgiving group, so I'm sure I accept your forgiveness for interjecting in places where I wasn't supposed to be this morning. It's all good, right? So when Richard invited me to speak on the one of the powers, I'll be back in November to talk about another one. I didn't mentally connect it with this being also Mother's Day, so I didn't really particularly connect my talk with the idea of Mother's Day. I'll extend my celebration of Mother's Day with you. Happy Mother's Day to all. Someone pointed out we're all here because we have mothers, right? We all have mothers. Ultimately, the universe is the mother of us all, right? The mother of all mothers. In terms of the creative process, we are all mothers in that we give birth to ideas and forms. One of the primary ways we give birth to ideas and forms is with the spoken word. Your life, as it is right now, has been formed to a great extent by your words. Think about all of the things that you've been through and how important your words were, for example, in your education. Maybe you didn't necessarily verbally agree to go to school. Your parents told you and you went, but at some point, if you went on to do work beyond the public school or the required school, you probably made some kind of verbal agreement at some point to go and study. You gave your word to do assignments and that sort of thing. And your assignments, to a great extent, consisted of words. Right? If you think about your livelihood, or whatever your livelihood is, at some point you made an agreement to do certain kinds of work, right? And a verbal agreement. And maybe your work involved the use of words. If you're a writer or a teacher, if you're a lawyer, even if you're any number of positions, counselors, physicians, nurses, all professions, all craftsmanship ultimately involves different kinds of agreements that when we give our word to do something, and then our words may be more involved in our lives than that. Or your home. At some point, probably before you signed all the contracts, you agreed to rent an apartment or to purchase a home verbally before you signed anything. You gave your word. In a sense, every time you use a charge card to get possessions, to pay bills, whatever you do that for, what you are doing is giving your word. You are making an agreement that is, if it maybe not a spoken word, but in some sense you've signed on to a set of words, to contracts. Probably more consequentially, your relationships have been formed by what you've said about others, what you've said to others. That has given form to and established your relationships for good or ill, depending on the type of relationship it is. And if you have broken relationships, words can will often be involved in the repair of those relationships. And maybe as important as anything, what you have said about yourself, mentally or with your spoken words, what you have said about yourself has established your idea of yourself, your self-image, how you feel about yourself. And that's something else that you can change. All the things that we have formed with our words can be changed also with words, to begin to pay attention to what it is that we're saying about ourselves, what it is that we're saying about ourselves in our heads, what the things that we just say out loud without thinking, right? Paying attention to the words. Your image, your self-image is established and reinforced every time you say or think something about yourself in words, and you can change that trajectory if you don't like how you're feeling about yourself. Every time you say something to someone or to the universe, the consequences of what you say are in effect instantaneous. Think about the simple act of speaking to another person. You say something, that person immediately not only hears it, but has some kind of mental response. And then that mental response may result in a reaction, maybe a physical reaction, or maybe a verbal one. But your word has gone out and had an instantaneous consequence, an immediate result. And as you continue in conversations, each word has consequences. Conversation is a process. And in fact, our lives, the formation of our lives, are a process. We use our language in an ongoing, step-by-step creative process. Instantaneous results of our words are sometimes minor and incremental, almost unnoticeable, and sometimes they are major and immediate. The authors of the scriptures were aware of this power of words. It's often called it the power of the tongue. The Bible itself begins, book of Genesis, with God creating. And how does God create? God says, let there be light, let there be a firmament, and so on. God says. The author of this scripture understood that the universe is an expression of divine ideas. So the creation story is a story from, I'm going to say, observation, from analogy. The author, knowing that how powerful our words are, deduces that in some sense God expresses God's divine ideas by speaking things into existence. Of course, we don't need to take this literally. If God was speaking, God was talking only to God's self. But we may understand God speaking as meaning that the divine mind gives energy to certain ideas. That energy, that focus on certain ideas creates the laws of the universe, and subsequently how the universe unfolds. The manifestation. So this God speaking is the mind giving energy to the ideas. Those ideas may be more like mathematics or something beyond language in the infinite. But this is a clue to the power of your word. The energy you give to ideas in consciousness expressed through your words forms your experience. Power or mastery is a divine idea reflecting the nature of God, the one power, omnipotence. Concentration on the idea of power builds up power in consciousness and expression. The authors of the Hebrew scriptures who were focused on wisdom also recognize the power of words. We read in Proverbs, there is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. This is an important thing to realize about the power of your words. Your words can be like sword thrusts, or your words can bring healing. Have you not experienced that in what people have said to you? Sometimes words cut, but sometimes they heal. But there is, nevertheless, a power that goes with each word. Another passage, even more extreme from Proverbs, says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, in the power of the word. And then when we move into the New Testament, we find, especially in the Gospel of John, a recognition of the power of the word, the creative power. In the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. This you've probably heard, and if you haven't, then maybe this is the first time. But in the Gospel of John, where we see word, it is a translation of a Greek word logos. And that word logos means much more than our notion of a bit of language as a single word. The logos, the word, is understood to mean the power of reason or wisdom, or even the divine idea of the universe in God mind. So the word is something more than a word. It is the very content of the divine mind that's being referred to here. And so in the Gospel of John, there's a recognition that the word was God. The content, the reason of the infinite mind actually is the same thing as that mind, just as the ideas in your consciousness, in effect, are your consciousness. So in the Gospel of John, Jesus represents divine wisdom and what wisdom does. Jesus says in the Gospel of John, the words I have spoken to you are spirit and life. This is, again, a recognition of the divine word expressing into our consciousness, spiritualizing us, giving us life. Jesus represents, in the Gospel of John, he represents the logos, the divine reason, the divine wisdom. In the Gospel of Matthew, we read, Jesus said, by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Again, recognizing that that power can be used in different ways. Some of them can bring justice, some of them can bring destruction. And so it's very important to pay attention to our words, because there is tremendous power in them that we don't often realize. One of the wisdom books of the New Testament is the letter of James. It's pretty much a wisdom book when you read it. It's very similar to Proverbs. It's very similar to the things that Jesus said. One of the points in there, James, who is supposed to have been the brother of Jesus, James writes, for if anyone makes no mistakes in what he says, he is a perfect man. We can also say she is a perfect woman, able to bridle the whole body also. So there's this profound recognition in the scriptures of the power of the word. Charles Fillmore regarded the power of the word as the key to mastery and dominion. He recognized, of course, 12 fundamental faculties or powers of consciousness: faith, love, judgment, strength, life, renunciation, order, zeal, imagination, right? Did I say faith, love, and judgment? Yes, 12 powers. And yet he gave to one of those powers the name power itself. He gave the name power to a faculty associated with speech and with singing and with the formation of words. We can say that this is the power of powers. It is the power of powers in the sense, in a similar sense to when we speak of the King of Kings. All of them are powers, but there's a higher power, just as there's many kings, but maybe a king of all those kings. In other words, the power of the word is the most powerful of all the faculties. So we may call this the power of power, but we may also call it the power of the word, the power of mastery, as Charles Fillmore referred to it, power of dominion. It is in part by and through the power of power that we develop all the other powers. It is a system, and every power, every faculty is important, has its role. These are not to be developed sequentially or separately, but in a kind of harmonization of all of these aspects of our consciousness. But the power of power, the power of the word, is one of the primary ways we use to develop those other powers. There are two kinds of affirmations that are used, and they sometimes get jumbled together. And it's important, I think, to be clear about these two different types of affirmations. First are the metaphysical affirmations. Metaphysical affirmations are simply our truth statements, such as there's only one presence and one power in the universe, God the good. That's a metaphysical affirmation. They are not intended to make something true, but rather to help us realize truth. When we use those affirmations, we're not trying to make something true. We're trying to understand or realize or bring into our consciousness what is truth in a sort of ultimate sense. They help us become conscious of the divine within, and this dissolves some of the illusions and false beliefs that we may be having that are obstructing our good. So those are metaphysical affirmations. Those are statements of truth, metaphysical truth. The other type of affirmation that we often use, I call formative affirmations. They're formative. They're intended to reform our experience in fairly specific ways. So when we talk about changing our beliefs in the subconscious mind, we're trying to reform our beliefs to change our experience. This is a sort of creative application that is intended to do something, to change something, to make something happen. So we have these two types, the foundational metaphysical affirmations and the formative affirmations. So for example, if you want an increased flow of supply, which seems to be something that most people are happy to be open to, an increased flow of supply, you can approach that in either one of these ways. If you're approaching it with metaphysical affirmations, you might be holding to ideas such as God is infinite substance. Divine substance flows freely in my life and provides for my every need. I am prospered by divine love. These statements about fundamental truths of the universe in relation to our understanding of divinity, our understanding of the nature of God, right? We can approach supply, healing, anything in this more general and grounded way, grounded in metaphysical truths. But we can also use, and it's often useful, helpful to use formative affirmations. So for example, if you have noticed that you're stuck in certain conditions, you're mentally stuck, then, and it's obstructing your progress, you might use an affirmation such as, I am willing to move past conditions and enter a new vibrant reality of success. I am willing to move past conditions and enter a new vibrant reality of success. Or you might even be more specific if you're, for example, looking for a job. You might use an affirmation such as, I am open and receptive to my right and perfect job. Using an affirmation to shift your consciousness, your sort of human experience, to change beliefs or to shift beliefs to bring on a better, I want to say, better experience of reality. For Charles Fillmore, this idea of the power of power was especially important for the inner spiritual work, because that is fundamentally what unity is really about. It's not fundamentally about prosperity and success or even healing. It is about developing spiritual consciousness, which then bears the fruit of provision and guidance and all the other good things that we need. Charles used this idea in the discussion of power to apply. He said, man should apply the power of the word to his individual redemption. And he should speak the redeeming word of spirit to the multitudinous thought people of his own soul and body. I kind of like this notion of thought people. We hold ideas of ourselves, we hold ideas of others, our relatives, our friends, the people we meet on the street. Our thoughts about them are our thought people. They are our particular perspective or take on what we see and what we are experiencing in others. We are not experiencing that person directly. We directly experience our thought of that person. So we have these thought people, and they need to be, as he said, redeemed, right? So the thought person that needs to be redeemed might be your past selves, your inner child, your ideas about gender, your thought people who are actually relatives or friends, your thoughts about them, in other words. But Charles is specifically focused on the 12 powers as represented by the disciples of Jesus, right? So that each of the powers is associated with a particular disciple, a thought person. In the case of the power of power, it's Philip, whose name means a lover of horses. Philip in the book of Acts is a disciple who, uses the power of the word, speaks the word. He uses it to persuade people. He uses it to heal. There's a few stories about him there. But the point is really that Charles is just recognizing a kind of symbolism in the Bible. And so he takes Philip to be power. It's as a thought person, he represents our thoughts about power, what we think about power, right? And what does he mean about redeeming these thought people? Well, the word redeeming basically means to recover or rescue. And so if we have a thought person that we're struggling with within ourselves, we may, depending on what the situation is, we might need to look at that thought person and find the value in it, the positive value. Or we may need to release negative feelings around that thought person. We may need to forgive that thought person. We're working with setting it free, letting it be a positive aspect of our experience. It may be a thought person we need to learn a lesson from, but whatever it is, depending on that, the condition and the thought person we're talking about, what we're doing is redeeming it. We're recovering or rescuing it from negativity to turn it into a more positive aspect of consciousness. So the thought person, Philip, right? Your power thought person. What you think about power and your own power is the condition, the current condition of Philip. And that thought power, there may be a need for reduction there. I think of what a common saying about power that I think is sort of fundamentally mistaken, or at least incomplete. And I'm sure you've heard this expression: power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Probably heard it over and over again, right? This saying comes from someone named Lord John Acton, who was a British Catholic historian. And Acton was a learned man, but he was not really an ultimate authority on moral judgment necessarily. I mean, after all, he lived during the time of the American Civil War, and he sided with the Confederacy. So we can't necessarily accept his judgment as authoritative. If that aphorism were true, if power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, then the ultimate representation of corruption would be omnipotence. So clearly there's something off there. We need to, I think, release that notion of that association of power with corruption and recognize the truth about power. Power is neutral. It can wound and it can heal. It's not so much having power, but how we use it. So I think a better statement about power, a wiser statement, comes from Mahatma Gandhi. He said that the day the power of love overrules the love of power, the world will know peace. So what corrupts is the love of power, but we can also use power to express love. We can know within ourselves this truth: I am one with omnipotence. My power is directed by divine love and wisdom, producing ever greater good. I am one with omnipotence. My power is directed by divine love and wisdom, producing ever greater good. In other words, associate power with the other positive qualities. Allow power, the power of your word and your consciousness to be directed by or in harmony with these other soul attributes like love and wisdom and order and so on. Our words very much form our spirituality and health. What we say about God forms our relationship with God. I have noticed recently that some metaphysicians try to avoid using the word God because they're concerned that when we use the word God, we are thinking of an idea of a separate person. We're holding to a sense of separation, or a concept of God as a kind of super person who can grant personal favors. I understand what's being struggled with here, and I agree that thinking of God as a super person who grants personal favors, who chooses your side to win the big game, and those sorts of ideas, I agree that that is sort of a mistake. To think of ourselves as separate from God is a mistake. But notice that the problem here isn't with the word God, but with limited and erroneous concepts of God. Gaining a clearer and more accurate understanding of God is the solution, not dropping God from our vocabulary. Metaphysicians and mystics have understood the word God to mean universal being, mind, the absolute good, the higher self or the true self. They have recognized, the metaphysicians and mystics have recognized, that our human form and consciousness is an individualized expression of the infinite possibilities of divine mind. They have recognized that we are always one with God, even when our expression is limited. So from a metaphysical and mystical perspective of the meaning of God, there's no separation. God is fundamentally immanent. I want to say God, we live, move, and have our being in God. God expresses in us, as us, and through us. So the problem's not the word God, it's getting clear about what we mean by that. What we say about spirituality forms our spirituality. It's fairly common for people today to say, or to identify as, I am spiritual but not religious. But there's no contradiction in those terms. You can be both spiritual and religious, right? They can be complementary aspects of your being. You don't have to reject one and accept the other. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. I think that's a good statement of truth. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And we need to be clear about what we mean by spirit, because it can be used in such vague ways. You think about the fundamental meaning of spirit, it means intelligence, consciousness, life, and energy. Intelligence, consciousness, life, and energy. So to be spiritual, really, in part at least, is to focus on that truth of your being, on being intelligent and conscious and lively and energetic. So to say something like, or to affirm, I am intelligence, is identifying with your spiritual nature. I am intelligence. I am consciousness, is to identify with your spiritual nature. I am life. Or as we used to, the affirmation we used to always teach, I'm alive, alert, awake, joyous, and enthusiastic about life. I am life, right? I am energy. I am energetic. That's fundamentally what spirit means, and what it means to be spiritual is to recognize those truths about what we really are, to some extent disidentify with our senses, our sense perceptions, our physical form, and to identify more with that spiritual aspect. And another thing that we associate with being spiritual, an important thing that we associate, is to develop consciousness of love, to develop a consciousness of truth. So love plays into our idea of what it means to be spiritual, is a very important aspect of it. And seeking the truth, or seeking wisdom, an important aspect of being spiritual. So it's important to pay attention to what we are saying about our nature as a spiritual being, to recognize what that really means. It's important to recognize, be aware of what we are thinking and saying about ourselves, about our health, about our bodies. Our tongues must be guided by wisdom and faith, love, associated with divine order, and so on, to form our lives in the best possible way. What we say has instantaneous consequences in our world, in our consciousness. It's also important to recognize that human consciousness has some limitations. So the power of your word is not omnipotent. Okay, and at the human level, your human consciousness interacts with the consciousness of others and with universal mind. You cannot impose your personal will on the universe. You can align with it, but you cannot impose your personal will on it. Your human consciousness is not wiser than science, right? Science is a collective understanding from observation about the forms and the laws of the universe. That's what science describes. It doesn't describe ultimate reality, but it does describe an aspect of that, the universe, right? In its physical forms and actions. And the universe, I would contend, ultimately, metaphysically, is not material at all, but that the laws, the content manifestation of the universe are really laws, content, and manifestation of a universal mind. This is an idea that's been held by philosophers since the time of Pythagoras, not all philosophers, but many of them, and pretty much by all mystics. And in modern times, it's interesting to note that physicists have come over to this view. I can actually cite a lot of physicists who agree that the universe fundamentally is mind stuff, that the old ideas of atomism and sort of the notion of materiality no longer hold with what we understand about the universe. It's mind stuff. So as I said, I could quote a lot of different physicists, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to quote instead a Nobel laureate in medicine and physiology, a man named George Wald, who in 1967 won the Nobel Prize, but who also studied the other realms of science, physics, quantum physics, and so on, trying to understand the very nature of life, which is his primary concern. And this is what Wald wrote. Mind, rather than emerging as a late outgrowth in the evolution of life, has existed always as the matrix, the source and condition of physical reality. The stuff of which physical reality is composed is mind stuff. It is mind that has composed a physical universe that breathes life, and so eventually evolves creatures that know and create. In them, the universe begins to know itself. So we are engaged in the universal mind. The atoms are not things that we have formed, but they are things that we can move. When you practice meditation, you may have noticed at times that when you come out of meditation, your hands feel warm and tingly. Have you ever noticed that? That is an example of your mind moving the atoms in your body, because what is happening there as you enter into very relaxed states, what is happening there is you're consciously and intentionally, whether you knew it or not, moving the atoms to expand the blood vessels so that the blood flows more freely. This is why meditation is useful for lowering blood pressure and so on. What's happening is you are intentionally, consciously, with your mind, holding words, thoughts, or images that create relaxation and peace. And in doing that, you affect the atoms, the very atoms in your body. And there are many other ways that our thoughts and words affect and move the atoms. So I'd like to close, and I realize I've gone a little bit long here. I apologize for that. I'd like to close with another aspect of the power of power. When we speak words aloud, they have power. When we sing them, they have even more power, because music is a harmonizing, vibratory energy that we can combine with, that puts us in a greater alignment, I think, with the universe, and we can align with the words we speak. I was thinking about singing a verse from a song to illustrate that, but what I'd like to do, if I may, is I'm going to put in the chat stream, if this works. We'll see if it does. The words that I have in mind. There we go. It's in the chat stream, the words that I have in mind. And maybe you know this song. It's called I Am the Radiant Life of God. And it is actually a song that was written by a longtime Unity Truth teacher, Georgiana Tree West, who founded Unity in New York City and wrote a number of Unity books. It's known as I Am the Radiant Life of God, but this is verse 3 that fits with this. So if you know the tune, You can drown me out by singing aloud in your room. And remember, you don't have to have a great voice to sing. It is your birthright to sing, right? So who cares what other people think about your voice? So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna illustrate that by singing the way I sing, like it or not. So here's how this song goes. Sing along with me, if you will. I am the wisdom and power of God. I am, I am, I am. I am the wisdom and power of God. I am, I am, I am. The light of God, the joy of God, prosperity, happiness, might of God. I am the wisdom, power of God. I am, I am, I am. Blessings. Thank you.
Wow. Great talk. Thank you.
You rock my world, sir. Mr. Carlini, you always bring in just such, you have a lot of hot friends that are just really beautiful. Yeah.
He's my hottest.
We'd like to share a song now that's blatantly autobiographical. Was that a word?
Yeah, that's a good word.
And but that's okay.
Autobiographical.
Thank you. That's what. See, the word man comes to the rescue. Thank you. And here it is.
Oh man, that was stimulating. That was stimulating. Deep joy, deep joy, deep joy, deep joy, deep joy, deep joy.
Got so tired of the rain and the gloomy. Heading south with my roomie. She's just the best.
Leave behind Seattle weather, pack up and drive to California together.
Every day we got fresh air and sunshine, and the people are so fine. Local food and wine, no complaints or need to censure. We got a sense of adventure here in California.
Hear the joy of our heart's desire. We used to sing so low, but now we have a choir.
We are finding our rhythm, just you and me, the sun and the sea.
Come on, everybody. Deep joy, deep joy, deep joy. Oh, deep joy, deep joy, deep joy. Hit it, honey. Hear the voice of our heart's desire. Come on, everybody. Oh, Golden Gate Bridge and Fogger Sunny. I'm here with my honey. I love the people.
Love the people.
I love their style.
Love the style.
And we fit into the great big pile.
Making music with friends and kindred spirits, growing parsley and carrots. Another battle won, winter sunshine, hanging with the kiddies. No need for moon boots or middies here in California.
Deep joy, deep joy, here in California.
Deep joy, California.
Thank you so much. The music and love of Narian and Janet. That was delightful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Reverend Jim Gaither. The Radiant Life of God. I am, I am, I am. Thank you, Reverend Jim. That was wonderful. I needed that this morning. And thank you for the meditation. Thank you, Julie Curry. Thank you, John Duffy. There we go. I couldn't get that to come out. And thank you, Ann Richardson. Thank you very much. And now it's the time that we give thanks for our donations, our love offerings. Thank you to all of those who've made a pledge to this ministry, who've contributed. If you're interested in contributing right now, you can go to the chat. Kevin's put a link in there with a link to our donate button on the website. You can also donate via the e-news. So we give thanks, and together we say our offering blessing. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am grateful. And now please join us in our peace song.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am that light. The love of God enfolds us. I am that love. The power of God protects us. I am that power. The presence of God watches over us. I am that presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for go forth using your power. Put power behind the words you speak, because they have power as they go out into the universe. Thank you. Thank you. And now we're going to break into breakout rooms. Thank you, Reverend Jim. Thank you once again. And we're going to break into breakout rooms, or you're welcome to stay here in the chat room, whatever you'd like to do. So